The first day at a new school is never easy. For her, it felt like walking into a storm without an umbrella. She kept her head down as she stepped through the school gates, her backpack snug against her back, hands tight around the straps. Her mother had told her to smile, to be polite, and to focus on her studies. Her grandmother, the quiet warrior at home, had only said one thing: respect is earned in silence. She didn't fully understand what that meant yet, but she would. The school was large and loud. Kids ran through the hallways, some laughing, some shouting. She passed by groups of students who stared, whispered, then looked away. She felt their eyes. Her skin color stood out. Her hair was different. Her clothes were simple and clean, but not trendy. She didn't try to impress anyone. She just wanted to get through the day. In homeroom, the teacher greeted her with a kind voice and asked her to introduce herself. She stood up and softly said her name. Some students smiled. A few didn't even look up. Others, especially one group of girls near the back, exchanged glances and small smirks. She saw it. She noticed everything. She always had. By lunchtime, she had already picked out who to avoid. The group of girls from earlier seemed to walk through the school like they owned it. One of them had shiny earrings and long painted nails. Another wore a loud jacket with her name stitched in gold letters. They looked confident. Too confident. She sat alone at lunch. That was fine. She was used to it. Her tray had a small sandwich and juice, and she quietly ate, ignoring the noise around her, until one of the girls from that group walked past and accidentally knocked her juice over. "Oh, my bad," the girl said with fake innocence, her friends giggling nearby. She looked up but said nothing. She just picked up the juice carton, wiped the spill with a napkin, and kept eating. This reaction seemed to bother the girls, like they expected a reaction and didn't get one. In gym class, things got worse. The class was asked to form teams. No one picked her. She waited and waited until the coach finally placed her in a random group. During a game of dodgeball, one of the girls threw the ball straight at her head, hard. It missed. Barely. Everyone laughed. She didn't. At home that evening, she was quiet at dinner. Her mom asked about school. She said it was okay. Nothing bad. Nothing special. Her grandmother, sitting at the corner of the table with her hands folded, looked at her deeply. "You kept your calm," the old woman said, almost to herself. She nodded slowly. "You remember what I taught you?" She nodded again. "Good. The world is loud. You be steady." The next day at school, the same group of girls bumped into her on purpose in the hallway. "Watch where you're going," one of them said, even though it clearly wasn't her fault. Again, she said nothing. But her silence made them more interested. It was like they had found someone new to mess with, and her quiet calm annoyed them. On the third day during lunch, they sat at her table uninvited. "You always eat alone?" the one with the shiny earrings asked. She nodded. "Why's that?" "You too good for everyone?" She shook her head. Another girl leaned in, whispering, "You act like you're better, but we'll see how tough you are soon." She didn't flinch. At there. Home, she spent her evening in the backyard with her grandmother. They moved slowly at first, just stretching. Then her grandmother showed her old moves, soft but powerful movements, breathing, posture, control. "You haven't forgotten the basics, have you?" "No, Grandma." "Good." Then came the footwork, then the blocks, then the turns. It wasn't about fighting. It was about balance. "Remember," her grandmother said, "karate is not for showing off, not for revenge, it's for protecting. And when you don't need to use it, that's strength." At school, the days passed. The girls grew bolder. One day, they cornered her in the restroom. No teachers around. "Let's see how calm you are now," the loud one said, stepping in close. Still, she didn't panic. Her body was still. Her eyes steady. Something about her calm expression made the girls hesitate. Just for a moment. Then the door opened. A teacher entered. The girls backed off like nothing had happened. "Everything okay in here?" the teacher asked. "Yes, ma'am," she said, nodding politely. Later, alone, she let out a slow breath. Her hands had started to curl into fists earlier, but she had stopped herself. She knew she could defend herself, but she also knew what. Her grandmother would say, "The real strength is staying calm when your heart is racing." That night, her grandmother placed an old belt in her hands. It was dark and worn. "This was your grandfather's," she said. "He never used it in anger, only when someone needed help." She held it gently, like it carried more than cloth, like it carried history. "I think you'll know when to use what you've learned," she nodded. "I won't let them get to me." Her grandmother smiled softly. "I know you won't." But deep inside, the girl knew something was coming. She wasn't looking for trouble, but trouble was watching her. And soon, it would test just how deep her strength really went. The week had barely ended when the real test began. It was Friday. The air in the school halls felt different, heavier. The girl walked to her locker as usual, eyes forward, steps steady. She had started to notice when things felt off. Today felt like that. Some students gave her strange looks. Others moved out of the way too quickly. Something was up. She quietly opened her locker, placed her books inside, and grabbed her notebook for class. Then she heard it. Whispers. "She's dead quiet. I bet she's scared. Let's see what happens after school." It wasn't the first time she heard things like that, but this time it felt planned. Still, she went to class, took notes, listened, gave answers when asked. She stayed focused. But the whispers never stopped. By the time lunch came, she had already decided not to sit in the cafeteria. She headed for the library instead, where it was quiet and calm. The librarian smiled and nodded. She found a seat by the window and read, a small book about nature, trees, rivers, mountains. It helped her breathe. But outside that calm space, the plan was already moving. The group of girls, the ones who had been bothering her all week, were spreading something around. They had told other students to meet behind the gym after school. They claimed there was going to be a show. No one knew exactly what that meant, but enough kids were curious to come watch. When the final bell rang, the girl walked out with her bag. She had no idea what was waiting for her. As she walked past the gym on her way home, she noticed something. People were gathering. Not just one or two, a lot of students, hanging near the back wall of the building, some with phones in their hands, some whispering and giggling. Then she heard her name. "Hey, you, stop right there." It was them. The loud girl from before stepped out from the crowd with two others by her side, the girl with the shiny earrings and the one in the gold-lettered jacket. The crowd slowly circled, waiting. She looked around. There was no adult in sight. The lead girl crossed her arms and tilted her head. "You think you're better than us? Huh?" The girl didn't answer. "You act so calm, so quiet, like you're above everybody." Still, she said nothing. Her hands hung by her sides, loose, but her back was straight, her breath slow. One of the other girls laughed. "Maybe we should teach her some respect." The girl blinked slowly. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. "Fighting is easy. Control is harder." "I don't want trouble," she said softly. But the loud girl stepped closer. "Well, trouble wants you." That was when the loud girl pushed her. Not hard. Just enough to test her reaction. The girl took a small step back but stayed on her feet. She looked into the loud girl's eyes, not with anger, but with calm. It threw the other girl off. "Why don't you say something?" She snapped. Still no answer. Then came the second push, harder. This time the girl shifted her weight and caught her balance. She didn't fall. She didn't stumble. She just adjusted herself like a tree in the wind. The crowd grew more excited. Phones were raised. Whispers turned into gasps. But what happened next wasn't what they expected. The girl gently set her bag down on the ground. Slowly, with care. Then, standing straight, she took one quiet breath in and out. It wasn't a fighting stance, but something changed in her posture. A stillness, a quiet readiness. The loud girl lunged forward, trying to push her again, but the girl simply moved, one small step to the side. The push missed her completely. The crowd murmured. The loud girl turned quickly and reached out, trying to grab her shirt. But again the girl moved, just enough to avoid it. Calm, balanced, focused. Now the crowd wasn't laughing anymore. The girl didn't hit, didn't shove, didn't raise a fist. She simply avoided every grab, every push, every attempt. And finally the loud girl lost her balance, stumbled, and nearly fell, catching herself awkwardly. Some kids gasped. A few even chuckled. The girl looked at her and said softly, "I don't want to fight you." And then she picked up her bag, turned, and walked away. The crowd slowly parted, surprised. No one had expected that. No punch, no shouting. Just grace. Control. Later that evening, at home, her grandmother was watering the plants in the garden. The girl walked up quietly and stood beside her. "You didn't hit anyone today," her grandmother said without looking. The girl smiled, just a little. "I didn't have to." Her grandmother looked at her with pride in her eyes. "That's the mark of someone truly strong." The girl nodded. But deep down, she knew it wasn't over. The others wouldn't give up so easily, and next time they might not come empty-handed. Monday came with a heavy sky. The wind felt sharp, the clouds low and gray. She walked to school like she always did, quietly, calmly. But this time, her steps were slower, not out of fear, but thought. She had made it through Friday without a single punch. Yet the eyes that followed her today felt sharper, more curious. The school now looked at her not as the quiet new girl, but as something different. She didn't brag. She didn't even speak about what happened, but others did. By mid-morning, the school buzzed with talk. Some said she was a black belt. Others claimed she moved like a shadow and could vanish punches. Most didn't know what really happened. But rumors have their own wings. The group of girls, the ones behind it all, weren't happy. Especially the leader. Her pride had been bruised, not her body, and that stung worse. In class, the teacher spoke about history, but the girl wasn't fully listening. Her eyes stared outside the window. Her mind was somewhere else. She thought about her grandmother, about the quiet practice in the backyard, about balance. She felt strong, but not safe. After school, she avoided the back path near the gym. She walked the longer way home, through the front gates, past the small store, then along the quiet streets lined with trees. That was when she saw it. A boy, sitting alone near the edge of the school fence, his knees pulled to his chest, face down. He looked younger than her, maybe a grade below. His shirt had dirt on the back like he had been pushed down. His backpack was open on the ground, books scattered. She walked over slowly and crouched beside him. "Are you okay?" He didn't answer, but his shoulders shook a little. He was crying. "Did someone hurt you?" she asked softly. Still no answer, but the way he didn't look up said enough. She began picking up his books one by one and placed them back into his bag. Then she sat beside him, just for a moment. No words, just presence. When he finally looked up, his eyes were red, but surprised. No one had stopped before. "Thank you," he whispered. She nodded and helped him stand. That moment stayed with her, because for the first time she realized something. Her strength wasn't just for her. There were others, quiet ones, scared ones, smaller ones, who needed someone to stand by them. That night she spoke with her grandmother in the kitchen. The old woman was slicing vegetables with practiced hands. "There was a boy today," the girl said. Her grandmother didn't look up but listened closely. He was crying. Looked like someone hurt him. The grandmother placed the knife down gently and wiped her hands. "Did you help him?" "I sat with him. I didn't know what else to do." Her grandmother gave a small smile. Sometimes sitting beside someone is more powerful than fighting for them. The girl nodded. "People are watching me now," she added quietly. "Not all in a good way." "Let them," the old woman said. "Let them see calm strength. Let them see someone who doesn't fall when pushed. But what if they try?" Something worse? Her grandmother paused, then said something different this time. Then show them that kindness does not mean weakness. The next day she did just that. During lunch, she chose not to sit alone. She sat with the boy from the day before. At first, he looked unsure. His small hands shook a little as he unwrapped his sandwich. But when he saw her smile softly and sit beside him, he relaxed. Other students noticed. Some were confused, some whispered. A few even laughed. But she didn't care. Kindness was now her armor, and it began to spread. Later that week, another quiet girl, one who often kept to herself in art class, walked over to her and asked if she could sit with them. She said yes. Soon, the quiet table in the corner became something else, a place of calm. No loud talk, no teasing, just peace. But the group of bullies saw this and felt their grip slipping, especially the leader. She couldn't stand the fact that the girl she once tried to embarrass had become something bigger. And so, a new plan was forming. This time, it wouldn't be pushing or yelling. It would be humiliation. She found out the new girl had signed up for the school talent showcase, just to help decorate, not perform. She was helping backstage, handling music and lights. That gave the bullies an idea. The leader whispered to her friends in the hallway, "We'll make sure everyone remembers her, but not in a good way." They started working quietly, spreading small lies, leaving fake notes, swapping song files. Nothing that could be traced easily, but enough to create a mess. They didn't know that someone was watching them. The boy, the one who once sat crying by the fence, had sharp eyes, and now he was no longer sitting alone. The day of the talent showcase finally arrived. The gym was filled with rows of chairs, bright lights, and a crowd that buzzed with excitement. Students wore colorful outfits. Parents stood near the back chatting. Teachers moved around with clipboards and walkie-talkies trying to keep things in order. Behind the stage, the girl moved quietly, helping with wires, setting up mics, checking the playlist on the school laptop. She had no plans to perform. She just wanted to help. She liked being in the background. She was good at noticing small details, like which lights needed fixing, or which student was too nervous to go on. She'd offer a calm word or a quick helping hand. That's how she always supported others, quietly. But today, someone was waiting to ruin that peace. While she stepped away to help a teacher move equipment, one of the girls from the group snuck backstage and opened the laptop she had been using. A USB was pulled from a pocket and quickly plugged in. A few clicks, a smirk. Then the girl disappeared into the crowd like nothing happened. Minutes later, the performances began. Students clapped and cheered as each act went up, singing, dancing, playing instruments. One boy told funny jokes. A group of girls did a song, in perfect harmony. Everyone was having fun. Then came the moment she was supposed to play a soft piano track for the next act, a shy student who was going to read a poem for her late father. The girl took her position at the back table and pressed play, but something was wrong. Instead of soft piano music, loud screeching noises blasted from the speakers. Then the screen behind the stage flickered and showed an embarrassing video. Someone had edited pictures of her, taken in secret around school, with fake captions. Too quiet. Thinks she's a ninja. Miss Perfect. The audience gasped. Students started whispering and laughing. The shy student on stage froze. Tears welled in her eyes. She rushed off before she could even start her poem. And the girl stood still behind the laptop. She didn't move. Everyone turned to look at her. Some thought she did it. Others just waited to see what she would do. But she didn't cry. She didn't shout. She reached down, unplugged the USB calmly, and shut the laptop. Then she picked up the mic. She didn't plan to speak, but something inside told her this moment mattered. She walked to the edge of the stage and looked out at the crowd. Her voice was soft, but steady. "I didn't make that video," she said, "and I'm sorry that it played." She looked toward the girl who had tried to perform and added, "You were brave to come up here. You still are." Silence fell over the gym. One teacher stepped forward, ready to stop things, but then paused. Because the crowd wasn't booing, they were listening. The girl continued, "When I came to this school, I didn't expect attention. I didn't ask for it, I just wanted to learn and go home in peace. But some people saw that as weakness." She looked right at the group of girls sitting near the back. "I don't fight with words or videos. I don't fight at all unless someone is truly in danger." Another pause. Then she said, "But I do believe in standing up. Not with fists, but with truth." Then she stepped down. No one clapped. No one laughed. They just watched her walk out of the gym slowly. Until one person stood. It was the boy, the one she had helped weeks ago. He clapped, loud, once, then again. A second person stood, then a third. Soon, more hands joined in. Not wild applause, but strong, slow, respectful. Her words had reached them, and the bullies? They didn't laugh anymore. In fact, one of them looked down at her feet. Another shifted uncomfortably. The leader, though, her jaw was tight, angry, but silent. Later, when the event ended, the principal called her into the office. Not to scold, but to ask what happened. She explained, calmly, told the truth, said nothing mean, blamed no one by name. But someone else had seen it all. The shy student who ran off stage had quietly told a teacher what she saw. A girl sneaking behind the laptop with a USB. By the next morning, the truth had spread. The group who tried to embarrass her had ended up embarrassing themselves. They were given in-school suspension and had to write public apologies. Not because she asked, but because the school had rules and the students had spoken up. But even after all that, she never once laughed at them. She simply went back to her normal seat at lunch, sat with her quiet friends, helped others, walked, home in peace. And one more thing changed. The boy she had helped weeks ago, he asked if she could teach him something. Not how to fight, he said shyly. Just how to stand calm, like you. She smiled gently. "Okay," she said. "Let's start with breathing." The school had changed, not overnight, not completely, but something was different now. People looked at her with new eyes, not as the girl who kept to herself, but as someone stronger than they realized. Some still whispered behind her back, but most whispered out of curiosity now, not cruelty. And quietly, something else began to spread. Respect. The boy she helped started joining her every afternoon for quiet breathing practice. A few others joined in too, just sitting together in the schoolyard after class, learning how to stay calm, how to stand tall, how to move with intention. But none of them knew her full story. Not yet. It started one morning when a teacher, Yar, older science teacher with gray in his beard, saw her adjusting a student's stance near the garden. "You move like someone who's been trained," he said, watching her carefully. She nodded politely, unsure what to say. "You ever compete?" he asked. "No, sir, I don't show off. My grandma says it's not for trophies." The teacher raised an eyebrow. "Who's your grandma?" She simply said her name. That was all it took. The man's eyes widened slightly. He stepped back. "Wait a second. Not that name?" She blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" He smiled. "That woman was a legend in my time. Used to run community classes, taught street kids how to protect themselves without ever raising a fist." The girl looked surprised. "She never told me that." "Modest?" The teacher chuckled. "But yeah, her name traveled far. I remember her winning a tournament once only to bow out and give her prize to the runner-up because he needed the money more." That night, the girl asked her grandmother about it. The old woman was folding laundry when she paused, sat down, and smiled softly. "I didn't think it mattered anymore." "But you were famous?" the girl asked. "Not famous, just useful," her grandmother replied. "People needed strength and I gave them what I could." The girl thought about that. Her grandmother had never hung up medals, never told stories. She just planted flowers, brewed tea, and spoke with few words. But inside her lived years of discipline, power, and humility. "Why didn't you tell me?" the girl asked. Because I didn't want you to think being strong meant being known. That line stayed in the girl's heart. But word had already begun to spread at school. By the next week, someone had written a small blog post in the school newsletter. The headline read, "Quiet Girl, Quiet Power, a Granddaughter of a Hidden Hero." It mentioned how her grandmother had once taught free martial arts classes in the neighborhood, helped women defend themselves, and was known for her peaceful wisdom just as much as her speed and skill. They didn't name her directly, but everyone knew. Even the group of bullies knew. And that changed things again. Because now they weren't just dealing with a quiet girl, they were dealing with someone connected to a legacy. A real one, not a made-up social media persona, not someone with flashy clothes or loud followers, someone with history behind her. And history is hard to shake. The leader of the group didn't like it, not one bit. At lunch, she stared across the room, her tray untouched. Her friends had stopped laughing like before. Some had even started being nice to the girl, small greetings, nervous waves. A few even asked to join the breathing group after school, but the leader stayed silent, until one day she didn't. It was Thursday, cloudy skies again. The girl was helping clean paintbrushes outside after art class when the leader walked up to her alone. No crowd, no cameras. Just two girls. "Everyone thinks you're special now," the leader said, arms crossed. The girl didn't answer. "I bet you feel proud." She looked up. "Pride isn't my goal," the leader scoffed. "You think people like you because you're calm? No. They like you because you're different, quiet, mysterious. But that wears off." The girl finished cleaning the last brush and stood up. "I don't care about being liked," she said gently. "I care about being useful." That line hit the other girl harder than expected. She took a step back, frowning. "Useful?" she repeated. "Yes, to the ones who need it, like that boy you made fun of, or the girl who was too scared to speak. Her poem." The leader's eyes narrowed. "Do you think you're better than me?" "No," the girl said. "But I think I'm trying to be better than I was yesterday." Then she picked up the brushes and walked back toward the classroom, leaving the other girl standing there, angry, yes, but also confused. Because for the first time she realized that no matter how loud she was, the quiet girl still had the last word. The next week started quiet, but something was off. The school halls felt slower, softer, as if waiting for something to happen. And for once the girl wasn't being watched. Not as much. No giggles behind her. No stares. Even the leader of the bullies kept her distance, her voice quieter than usual. It almost felt peaceful. But peace has a way of being tested when you least expect it. On Tuesday, the girl was in science class, working quietly on a plant project. A soft knock on the classroom door interrupted the teacher. A student from another class stood there, eyes wide. "I need help." Someone fell. Outside near the field, the teacher rushed out with the student. Moments later, the class was told to stay seated. But curiosity grew fast. Whispers filled the room. Then the news spread. It was one of the girls from the group, the one who always wore gold-lettered jackets. She had fainted near the school fence. Some said she had skipped breakfast, others said she looked pale all day. But when the girl heard, she didn't ask questions. She stood up, walked out calmly, and followed the commotion toward the nurse's office. Inside, the girl sat on the small bench, head in her hands. She was sweating, breathing fast. Her bag was on the floor, half open. The nurse was checking her pulse but looked worried. The girl stepped in quietly. "She needs water," she said softly. The nurse looked up, surprised. "Do you know her?" "I do." She walked over, grabbed the water bottle from the girl's bag and handed it over carefully. Then she knelt beside her. "Drink, slowly." The other girl, too weak to argue, took a few small sips. Her hands were shaking. "Why are you helping me?" she whispered. "Because you need it," the girl replied. No more words were spoken. The girl stayed beside her until her breathing slowed, and the nurse smiled, saying, You may have just saved her from a serious collapse. Later that day, when the girl returned to class, people stared again, but this time for a different reason. She helped her? Weren't they enemies? Why would she do that? But the girl didn't listen to any of it. She wasn't keeping score. She wasn't interested in pride. That night at home, she sat with her grandmother under the open sky. The stars were just starting to appear. Someone fainted today, the girl said softly. And you helped? Her grandmother asked without looking away from the sky. I couldn't leave her like that. The old woman nodded. Good. That means you understand. Understand what? That discipline isn't just about defense, it's about service. The girl thought about that. Even for people who hurt you? Especially them, her grandmother said. Because they're the ones who need to see the difference between power and kindness. The next morning, something strange happened. The girl with the gold jacket approached her in the hallway. No crowd, no makeup, just her. She looked nervous. I wanted to say thank you. For yesterday. The girl nodded. The other girl hesitated, then added, I never understood why you didn't hit back. The girl thought for a moment. Because I know what real hurt looks like. And it's not solved by hurting others. That reply settled deep in the girl with the jacket. She didn't say anything else. She just nodded and walked away. Slower, more thoughtful. But word traveled fast. Even the leader of the bullies heard about it, and something inside her changed too, but in a way she didn't understand yet. That Friday, something even more surprising happened. The principal announced that next week students would be invited to host their own group sessions after school, any subject they cared about. It's called Peer Week, the principal explained. Time for students to share what makes them strong. Everyone buzzed with excitement. Art groups, music sharing, baking clubs, even one about video games. Then a teacher approached the girl and said, You should lead one. She blinked. Me? Yes, the teacher smiled. Whatever you do in the yard after school, breathing, calm movement. The others call it peaceful training. I think more students could use it. The girl didn't answer right away. She just looked out the window thinking, could she really teach others she didn't know? But maybe she could try. And maybe this time people would listen, not because they feared her, but because they finally understood her. The following Monday, a sign-up sheet was pinned to the bulletin board outside the main office. On it were colorful flyers. Cookie club, music jam, poetry and pens. But down at the bottom, written in plain black pen on white paper, was a quiet note. Stillness and strength, breathing, balance, and calm movement. After school, under the big tree near the field. No big drawings, no decorations, just that simple message. At first, no one expected many to come, but when the final bell rang and the sun dipped lower in the sky, the girl stood alone beneath the wide old tree. Her bag was set down, her shoes off. She stood in the grass, breathing, slow and steady. Then came the first. The little boy she'd helped that first week. Small, smiling, now braver. Then a girl from her art class. Then two more. Then, to everyone's surprise, the girl in the gold-lettered jacket arrived. She didn't say anything. She just sat quietly with her hands on her knees. One by one, the group grew to a dozen, and then, just before they started, someone stood off to the side. It was her, the leader. Arms crossed, head low. No jokes this time. She wasn't laughing. She wasn't mocking. She was just watching. The girl didn't call her out. She didn't ask her to leave or force her to join. She just smiled gently and said to the group, "Let's begin." They started with breathing. Slow, deep, in and out. Then movements. Simple steps, light hands, still postures. It wasn't about martial arts. It was about presence. About finding calm in a noisy world. Birds chirped nearby. A breeze danced through the leaves. The group moved together in silence, some clumsy, some smooth, but all focused. No one spoke, and for the first time, the schoolyard felt truly peaceful. At the end, the girl bowed gently, hands together. "Thank you for sharing this space." People clapped softly, not out of excitement but appreciation. Some walked off with peaceful smiles. Others stayed to help pack up, but the leader didn't leave. She stood there, arms still crossed, face unreadable. Then finally, she stepped forward. The girl looked up at her calmly. "You're really not like the rest of us," the leader said quietly. "I'm just trying to be like my grandma." The girl replied. The leader looked down. There was a long pause. "I used to be scared," the leader said suddenly, "before I ever met you. Scared of being ignored, scared of not being good enough. So I got loud, mean." The girl didn't interrupt. "I thought if people feared me, they wouldn't forget me." The girl stepped closer. "They didn't forget you," she said gently, "but they didn't see the real you either." The leader's shoulders dropped just a little. "I don't know who that is anymore." The girl nodded. "That's why we breathe. To listen to the part of ourselves that's still there." The two stood in silence for a long moment. Then the leader did something no one expected. She sat down in the grass and crossed her legs. "Will you show me?" she asked, and the girl smiled. "Yes. We'll start with the breath." A week later, the school principal visited one of the sessions under the tree. She watched from a distance as students of all types moved slowly and peacefully together. No noise, no phones, just stillness. Later that day, the principal made an announcement on the intercom. "There is strength in silence. There is power in peace. And some of the strongest leaders don't stand at the front of the room but beside you, breathing quietly." She didn't mention any names. She didn't need to. Everyone knew who she was talking about. The tree had become a quiet symbol, not just a spot for breathing and balance, but something more, something steady. The place where students could be soft without shame. Where silence wasn't awkward but comforting. Weeks had passed. The group had grown. And though she never stood on a stage, never made long speeches, the girl had become something no one expected. A leader. A gentle one. Her sessions were now part of the school's weekly rhythm. Some students came to practice movement. Others came just to sit. Some came only to watch. And that was okay. The important thing was, people came. One Wednesday afternoon, as the last session ended, the girl sat alone under the tree, just breathing. The breeze played with her hair, and the sun dipped low behind the school building. Everything was quiet. Then came a soft sound. Footsteps in the grass. She turned, and there, slowly walking toward her, was her grandmother. She wasn't usually the type to visit school. She didn't like noise, crowds, or being noticed. But here she was in her plain clothes, her old walking shoes, hands folded in front. The girl stood quickly. "Grandma?" "I heard from someone at the grocery store," the old woman said, "that there's a girl under a tree teaching strength without shouting." The girl smiled softly. "They said that?" Her grandmother gave a small nod, eyes twinkling. "And I thought, that sounds familiar." She walked over and sat beside her granddaughter in the grass. They didn't speak for a while. Then softly the girl asked, "Do you think I've done it right?" The grandmother looked at her for a long moment, then said, "You did it your way, and that's more than right. It's real." The girl looked down. "Sometimes I felt like I was making it up as I went." "We all do," the grandmother replied. "Even I did." A few birds flew overhead. A ball bounced in the distance. Somewhere, a group of students laughed on their way home. Then her grandmother added something else. "Do you know why I never made a big deal about my past?" The girl shook her head. "Because people chase fame, trophies, praise. But I only ever wanted to plant peace. In small ways, in small places." She picked up a leaf and held it between her fingers. "Peace doesn't grow loud, it grows quiet like this." The girl watched her grandmother, feeling tears rise, but not sad ones, the warm kind. The kind that fall when your heart is full. I didn't win fights, the old woman said. I won hearts. She turned and smiled. And now, so have you. The girl felt a weight she hadn't even noticed slowly leave her shoulders. That evening, after her grandmother left, something even more surprising happened. The leader of the old group, the one who had once mocked her, pushed her, tried to tear her down, arrived with a folded piece of paper. She handed it over without a word, then sat on the grass. The girl opened it slowly. Inside was a short note. I used to think being feared made me strong, but watching you, I learned something better. Thank you for not being like me. At the bottom, the words, "Can I keep learning from you?" The girl looked up, nodded once, and gently said, "Yes, you already have." Weeks later, the school posted a photo on the wall near the entrance. Not a fancy picture, just a simple shot. Student sitting under the tree, hands on knees, eyes closed, calm and still. In the center, the quiet girl, breathing gently. No smile for the camera. Just presence. The photo had no caption. It didn't need one. Everyone who passed it knew what it meant. It meant something had changed. Not through shouting, not through fighting, but through patience, kindness, and quiet power. The kind passed, down from one strong heart to another, across time, across generations. And it all began with a girl who refused to be moved, no matter how hard the world tried to shake her.